one of the mega trends that we've been observing is the whole movement from fee-based services to free services. And the free to fee model, or the freemium model as it's sometimes called, is obviously another very important mega shift that we need to watch. And it's happening in South Africa as well, and not only South Africa, but there are a variety of pan-African or niche African portals that have already emerged. We actually came up with at least 5 immediately that are like Facebook. And there are very distinct geographical differences in terms of penetration rates of these different open social networking services. You find in Brazil, for example, completely different market share for Facebook there compared to some other social networking portal. So there's still room in Africa and in South Africa for disruptive things to happen. The other trend that we just want to pick up on here is the music industry and how it's being turned on its head globally, and that's happening here as well. Fiber to homes, obviously that's more of a South African trend. Triple play, we're seeing communities starting to get involved, not only gated communities but also suburbs, and I'll mention later also suburbs like Parktown, for example, Parkmore I should say, not Parktown. They've got quite a strong community management forum, if you like. Sunning Hill, where I live, is probably going to be fairly similar in terms of the ability to get people to attend a community meeting and maybe try and get them to club together and do their own things. So there's a lot of things happening, not just in gated communities, but in all sorts of communities in South Africa. And obviously then the operators are going to start getting involved, and already getting involved in some cases to try and participate in this fiber to the home environment as well. And then obviously if you talk about how do you make money out of all of these things, the monetization models for mobile content are going to be very interesting to look at as well. There's a distinct shift away from subscription and pay-to-use models towards advertising-based models. And, the jury is really out in terms of how big that's going to be, but we know it's going to be fairly significant in terms of mobile advertising, particularly internet advertising behind that, for PCs and so on. If you want to know if you want sort of an indicator to watch to keep track of this as we go down this track, you could have a look at NASPAS. Obviously they've been singled out as being very powerful in the space, and there's been a lot of discussion in the media lately about this whole question of alternative pay TV operators. And but if you look at NASPAS and what they're doing quite a lot of different things. Basically, you can see from what they're doing all sorts of things apart from the Africa-wide DSTV rollout, the DVB-H in Nigeria and Kenya, where they haven't had the same regulatory constraints as they've had in South Africa for live mobile TV. They've got activities, especially with instant messaging in Russia, China, India, all over. They're trying out some of those bundled services that we talked about earlier in terms of combining pay TV with internet. Gated communities, they've got a stake in Smart Village. I see in the paper this morning that Vodacom is now taking a stake in Internet Solutions as a gated community company. So these are also things that are happening. IPTV trials. So the important point at the bottom is fiber optic in the future, absolutely one way or another. The satellite is still by far the dominant delivery platform for pay TV, but whoever has fiber optic cables, and particularly if they're getting close to homes, can be then connected to homes through either a direct connection or through a very short length of copper, or some other method, will ultimately have players like NASPAS being attracted to them. And NASPAS will play with all of them. I think they're not going to just choose one or the other. They will actually provide pay TV services on a partnership basis to different players. Just to wrap up this whole discussion on content, this is also just to put into perspective how many different things Google is doing. Poor Google. What shall we do today? Can you complete the sentence for those of you who used to watch Pinky and the Brain not so long ago? Let's take over the world. And about a year ago, if you'd asked me, can Google be unseated from this dominant position that it's achieved so rapidly? I would have said no. But now what we're seeing is a whole lot of open applications coming out, open social they call it, which are providing different ways of aggregating, and I think that combined with what I said earlier about geographic differences and different niche communities could actually mean that once again we could find churn in this whole environment, this whole social, it's not just social, it's everything that Google does, search and applications and everything else, but surely though, whatever happens they'll still remain extremely powerful. And chat on what Neotel's relationship is to the fiber optic investments that are going on. CCOM, the East Coast cable, being far ahead of all the other projects and really much more secure in terms of any political hurdles and so on than most of the other cables, and having all of its investment in a row, its ships and cable supply and all of that sort of thing is almost certainly going to be on track, I think, to light up, if not exactly on schedule in the middle of next year, perhaps just slightly late, but not dramatically late like most of these cables are likely to be. There are many other projects across Africa as well that are not necessarily sea cables, it's a lot of terrestrial fiber cables. Everybody is now piling into the fiber landscape and saying this is an economic investment proposition. We can make money out of this, and you mentioned the gated communities as well. And as a result of all of this, obviously we're going to see that aspect of the wholesale pricing infrastructure coming down quite quickly. I say that aspect because there are obviously many other components of total wholesale costing in the market, and therefore you won't see a one-to-one relationship. It's almost like the oil price and the petrol price. There's a definite relationship, but there's not an absolutely one-to-one relationship. There's other costs involved in turning oil into petrol and distributing it. And obviously we've got metros that are laying fiber all over the place. That's been in the news lately as well, in terms of the city of Joburg saying, bring your fiber, but we're going to charge you for the access rights to our streets in future. It's actually interesting because that is really a typical model in many countries overseas, and our model has been very untypical, to just allow anybody and everybody to dig up the roads. It's actually often seen as almost a social objective of cities to make sure that everybody gets some access to networks that includes the rich areas and the poorer areas. And by doing what they're doing, they may actually be trying to achieve those same sort of objectives as overseas cities are doing, which is to say, we are going to charge some kind of a tax, but then we'll make sure that that is used for the social benefit of giving equal access to more unprofitable areas. I think probably I'm going to end just right there, because the last one is really just prices falling further at all levels, wholesale, retail, voice and broadband. Prices continue to fall further. Going to be lots of special offers to induce churn, but also to defend against it. This is something we've already seen, but we're going to do more of those. And those bundles and contracts and so on are really important methods for companies to try and reduce that churn rate.